SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
Surf Excel නම් භාගයයි මාසයකට වඩා රිදි සෝතයි. Tonight, I have a plan. Speaking in his first interview, the new governor of the central bank reveals plans for a broad economic package for recovery.
It is a plan that takes into consideration Sri Lanka's strengths, weaknesses, what opportunities we have, and the threats that we have to face. Essential that we implement it well.
Don't repeat the same mistakes. Catholic Church representatives calls for an investigation into Thera's claims of detailed information on another attack.
We are urging the legal enforcement authorities to commence investigation under the law, which they are empowered under the law to do that. If you do not, you are also committing a criminal offence of negligence.
Not enough. Opposition and civil society groups call for more action against errant state minister.
He continues to remain a Minister of State in charge of other subjects. This is not something that we can accept. He must be removed from all his positions immediately.
The lockdown effect. Child specialists warn parents of the hidden effects of homeschooling.
Obesity is a problem because they do not engage in lot of physical activities.
Increased screen time is associated with depressive and anxiety symptoms, and it can lead to problems in attention and concentration.
All this and much more coming up on this Thursday, the 16th of September 2021.
දසනකාන්තී චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයිෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වලකයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. Newly appointed Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Ajit Niwad Cabral, in his first interview after taking over the helm at the country's apex financial institution, says that he expects to make the country's journey to economic recovery a very clear-cut and inclusive package so that every sector of the country's development agenda has no confusion over the government's goals and intentions. Speaking to Indivari Amuwatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, Governor Cabral stated that the central bank intends to lead from the front and not react to market conditions in its push to reach its 5% growth target for this year.
International rating agencies downgraded Sri Lanka's outlook. How are we looking at addressing the current situation, Governor? Where do you assess Sri Lanka today?
This is all interconnected. That is why we had to have a policy package where we could deal with these different issues in a manner which is in harmony one with the other. That is why I don't want to be having piecemeal solutions for these matters. It has to be a package where all these matters are addressed together. I was disappointed with the rating agencies because I think they too jumped the gun. There were many countries that were faced with the COVID situation and the tension that was created as a result, which unfortunately was not understood sufficiently by the rating agencies, I think. That's why they downgraded about 125 countries. But leaving that aside, we got to get our house also into order. And getting that into order with the current challenges is not easy. That's why I am committed to announcing as well as moving towards in a package form so that people will know this is what is expected from us. You see, there are different people with different agendas, not in a bad way, but their own agendas could be different. The importer's agenda could be different from the exporters. The borrower is different from the lender. The person who is remitting money, it is different from the person who is investing outside. The people of the country who have to deal with cost of living, they would see things in a different light. All these are matters that need to have a unified approach. So that's why it will be necessary for the central bank to have a close dialogue with the government, to know what the government is doing, and if the government is doing things differently, to have a conversation that would bring some cohesion. So I am confident that we can have that kind of a conversation, and if we do that, that, we can overcome any of these problems.
If we talk about investments and the forex issue that we're talking about currently, we are out of money, that's what they say. But how do we intend to address this issue?
We have a clear picture in our own framework as to where we should move, and that is where we need to guide the economy to move towards. The central bank is not a follower. The central bank has to lead. The central bank has to provide the guidance to the rest of the markets as to where we would think that the rupee would be more stable, where the interest rates should be, where the monetary policy should be directed, how much of growth we should have without the overheating of the economy. These are all longer term positions that the central bank must envisage and then move towards. So it's always difficult for people to understand the short term steps and policies, because it may be a part of a larger scale of measures that the central bank is introducing. That's why it's also important that the central bank communicates so that people know where we are moving. Once you do that, it's always possible to get people to also buy into the plan. We'll also give indication as to the range at which we would like to see the economy moving. This year, our intention is to at least achieve a 5% growth. Having that as our overall yardstick, then we got to make sure that the rest of the macro fundamentals will sit comfortably with that kind of growth. So for that, we need to see how much money we should be having in circulation. We need to see what kind of rupee we should have, where it should be pitched, how our foreign exchange should be handled, how do we direct the economy to move towards those priorities. These are all the matters that we should be consciously direct.
There is also opposition insisting that the government should seek IMF intervention. What is your view here?
If you ask these people who say we should have IMF intervention and what it would entail, I'm sure many of them won't even know. Some people believe it's a panacea for all ills. Here comes IMF and everything will be rosy. They don't know how many times countries have suffered to a great extent as a result of that kind of interventions, which does not have its origins within the country. Sometimes these prescriptions are developed elsewhere, and those prescriptions won't work in these kind of conditions. We have developed a plan which is very clear. It is a plan that takes into consideration Sri Lanka's strengths, weaknesses, what opportunities we have, and the threats that we have to face. So that plan, essential that we implement it well. Let's have some new inflows which are not debt creating. So with those inflows, let us settle some of the debt so that our overall vulnerabilities will shrink. That kind of specific strategy are being implemented by us, and I'm sure with the help of the government as well as the other private sector agencies that are also working in tandem to ensure that that happens, we would be able to reduce the vulnerabilities of the Sri Lankan economy and at the same time move the country towards greater debt sustainability.
Following claims made by Bodu Balasena General Secretary Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasara Thera on a televised talk show recently, where the Thera claimed to possess first-hand evidence of another extremist plot to attack Catholic Church targets, Church representatives today held a media briefing to respond to the claims and call for immediate action before past mistakes are repeated. Further responding to media questions on this grand conspiracy claims, Father Cyril Gamini Fernando of the National Catholic Centre for Social Communication stated that the Church was led to believe in the claim due to the source of the information, namely the former Attorney General of Sri Lanka, who was privy to all the facts.
A media briefing was held today by representatives of the Catholic Church in response to comments made by Bodu Balasena General Secretary, the Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasara Thera, at a televised talk show recently, where the Thera had claimed to be in possession of information regarding a plot to carry out another attack on the Catholic community, including the identities and locations of the suspects. Speaking on behalf of the Church, President's Counsel Neville Aberatna says that with such clear information, which the Thera says he has already provided to the country's head of state, an immediate investigation must be launched to prevent a repeat of past mistakes.
In his disclosure in the TV program, Reverend Gnanasara Thera stated that there is going to be a similar attack, that of the Easter attack in this country in the near future. And the Reverend Thera further states very clearly that he knows of the extremist group or people who are behind this to frame this attack. And he is aware that even the equipment, devices, that he knows that they are kept prepared. And he also knows the places in which these extremist groups are hiding or they are doing the preparation to commit these offences. And the Reverend Thera further states that he has informed His Excellency the President of this country Now we know what happened in the Easter bomb attack, and there are senior government officers who were aware of these attacks. It was revealed in the Presidential Commission inquiry that they were totally negligent in preventing the occurrence of this incident. Now, what we are asking the legal enforcement authorities, there is clear provision under the Criminal Procedure Code in Chapter 10 and Chapter 11. The legal enforcement authorities can take action to prevent the occurrence of such a calamity to this country. So therefore, we are urging His Excellency the President, the government and the legal enforcement authorities to inquire into this matter, commence investigation under the law, which they are empowered under the law to do that. If you do not take steps to prevent it, you are also committing a criminal offence of negligence.
Meanwhile, Reverend Father Dr. Camillus Fernando, the editor of the Messenger magazine, also addressed the media to reject another comment made by the Thera, where he claimed to have warned the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, of the impending Easter attacks.
In the same program, Venerable Jnanasara Thera explained that he met His Eminence Cardinal at the Bishop House in the year 2017, and thereby he mentioned during that meeting that there would be an attack against the Catholic community in the future. But His Eminence categorically denied it, that he explained to him that there would be attack against Catholics, but they had met, as Venerable Thera explains, but discussed mainly about the extremism being expanded in the country. That is the main point that they had discussed.
In the meantime, Director of the National Catholic Center for Social Communications, Reverend Father Cyril Gamni Fernando, when questioned on the Church's insistence of a grand conspiracy behind the Easter attacks, he stated that it all comes down to the source of the claim, the former Attorney General at the time, Dapula de Oliveira, who was privy to all available evidence.
හිටපු නීතිපතිතුමා කියනවා නම් කුමන්ත්‍රණයක් තිබුණායි කියලා. ඔහු තමයි සියලු කරුණු දන්නේ. කරලා තියෙන සියලුම පරීක්ෂණ පිළිබඳව දන්නේ ඔහුයි, සාක්ෂි දන්නේ ඔහුයි. අපිට ලැබුණේ නැති පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරය පිළිබඳ ජනාධිපති කොමිෂන් සභාවේ වෙලුම් 22ක් තියෙන්නේ ඔහු ළඟයි. එතකොට ඔහු තමයි දැනට එළිදරව් වෙලා තියෙන සියලු දේ දන්නේ. එසේ දන්නා කෙනෙක් ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා නම් මේක අන්තවාදී පිරිසක් විසින් කරපු ප්‍රහාරයක් විතරක් නෙමෙයි, මේ පිටුපස කුමන්ත්‍රණයක් තියෙනවා කියලා. මේ අන්තවාදී කණ්ඩායම හුදෙක් ඒ කුමන්ත්‍රණය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරපු අය විතරයි කියලා අපේක විශ්වාසය. අපිත් ඒ නිසා කියනවා ඔව් ඒ පිටුපස කුමන්ත්‍රණයක් තියෙනවා කියලා. එහෙමනම් හොයලා බලන්න. ඇයි පරීක්ෂණ කරන්නේ නැත්තේ? ඇයි හිටපු නීතිපතිවරයාව කැඳවලා ඒ පිළිබඳව ප්‍රකාශ සටහන් කරගන්නේ නැත්තේ? ඇයි ස්වාධීනව මේ ගැන පරීක්ෂණයක් කරන්නේ නැත්තේ? ඒකනේ අහන්න ඕන ප්‍රශ්නේ.
More news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
Big 3.
Welcome back in more news. Pandemic-induced school closures have taken a toll on millions of children, giving rise to a whole host of problems that would have detrimental effects to their futures. With a shift to remote learning, medical experts are now pointing out that disruptions in the usual education patterns can lead to long-term physiological and psychological dangers. Obesity, depression, anxiety, and screen addiction are key among the concerns.
1.6 billion children in over 180 countries are currently having to get used to a new digital form of formal education, with schools closed to minimize the spread of the virus among them. In South Asia alone, the figure is 434 million. Here in Sri Lanka, school openings have been sporadic, closed and reopened several times, with the last closure in March affecting 4.4 million kids. However, the disruption caused by this shift from a conventional school setting has given birth to a whole new set of problems concerning both the physical and mental health of our kids. Pediatric neonatologist Dr. Suranta Pereira says that due to spending prolonged period at home, a comfortable environment with no set routine, parents need to be more alert to the effects of a lack of physical exercise.
Child nutrition is a very important theme in this context. When we consume diets, the activity level also very important. Children may consume more calorie valued diet, and definitely their activity would be less than standard environment. Not only that, they will eat more. One thing is they are in the home environment all the time. There aren't any rules. And the second thing is they will eat more because of the tension. Obesity is a problem because they do not engage in lot of physical activities. They keep on eating different stuff. It's not a structured or routine way it happens. So these things should be taken care of.
But it is not only their physical health that parents need to be more attuned to. Consultant child and adolescent psychiatrist Dr. Muru Chandrasena says that there are psychological dangers that lie hidden in the digital world as well.
Mental health research all around the world have detected that during the pandemic, children and teenagers are more affected with depression, anxiety, screen addiction and related mental health problems. In our clinics in Sri Lanka, we are seeing increased amount of children and teenagers presenting with mental health problems. In our clinic at the Ragama Teaching Hospital, we have noted that there's 20% increase of kids presenting with depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms and screen addiction and video gaming addiction. This has become a major issue because they are confined to their homes.
In addition, Dr. Chandradasa also warns that longer screen time could also lead to attention and concentration issues as well.
Increased screen time is associated with depressive and anxiety symptoms, and it can lead to problems in attention and concentration. When the concentration is affected, they will feel lazy and bored, and they will not like to do school work because the screens are very attractive, colorful and fast. When their concentration levels are set to that level, they will say that they are unable to focus on school work. And because of these mental health problems, they will get angry more often and they will have irritability. Parents usually say that their kids who used to be pleasant and cooperative are quite difficult to manage and they do not follow instructions very often.
Meanwhile, among the other problems caused by the schools' closures, a report published by the UNESCO highlights alarming inequities in learning opportunities for children in South Asia, despite considerable efforts by relevant stakeholders, including governments, to expand remote learning. In Sri Lanka, 69% of primary school children's parents have reported that their children were learning less or a lot less compared to pre-pandemic levels. The report notes that children from the most disadvantaged households and children with disabilities have borne the brunt of pandemic-induced school closures. Adding to the report, UNICEF's regional director for South Asia says that even when devices are available, they are often underutilized and that children's access to them is often limited. With that, the UNICEF report concludes that safe reopening of schools must be the utmost priority of all governments in order to reduce the impact on kids.
Consultant mycologist at the Medical Research Institute, Dr. Primali Jayasekara, said that black fungus is not new to Sri Lanka as it has existed in the country before. However, she said that this condition among COVID-19 infected was only reported in June this year. In the meantime, the Association of Medical Specialists called the government again to extend the lockdown until early next month to obtain better results in the controlling of COVID-19.
Yesterday, medical experts announced that cases of black fungus infection among the country's COVID-19 infected has been detected from several districts. Commenting on the issue today, consultant mycologist Dr. Primali Jayasekara stated that it's not only COVID-19 patients that need to be cautious, as anyone can get it.
මේ අවුරුදු ජූනි මාසේ ඉඳන් තමයි අපිට මේ රෝගීන් හම්බ වෙන්නේ කොවිඩ් රෝගීන් අතර කළුදිරීර රෝගීන්. හැබැයි කළුදිරීර රෝගය මම මීට පෙර වතාවකදීත් මාධ්‍යයට කිව්වා වගේ ලංකාවට අලුත් දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. අපිට කොවිඩ් රෝගේ ලෝකේ මේ ප්‍රචලිත වෙන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලත් කළුදිරීර රෝගීන් ලංකාවේ අපිට බහුලවම වාර්තා වුණා. කොවිඩ් රෝගීන් අතර කළුදිරීර රෝගීන් ගත්තොත් ජූනි මාසේ අපිට රත්නපුර රෝහලෙන් දෙන්නෙක් වාර්තා වුණා. ත්‍රිකුණාමලය මහ රෝහලෙන් දෙන්නෙක් වාර්තා වුණා. ජූලි මාසේ ත්‍රිකුණාමලය මහ රෝහලෙන් එක්කෙනෙකුත්, අගෝස්තු මාසේ කොළඹ ජාතික රෝහලෙන් රෝගීන් දෙන්නෙකුත්, සැප්තැම්බර් මාසේ මේ වෙනකොට කොළඹ ජාතික රෝහලෙන් රෝගීන් දෙන්නෙකුත්, රත්නපුර ශික්ෂණ රෝහලෙන්, කරාපිටිය ශික්ෂණ රෝහලෙන් සහ කළුබෝවිල ශික්ෂණ රෝහලෙන් රෝගීන් එක්කෙනා බැගිනුත් වාර්තා වෙනවා. මේ සියලුම රෝගීන් අපි රසායනාගාර පරීක්ෂණ පවත්වලා කොවිඩ් රෝගයට අමතරව කළුදිලීර රෝගය ආසාදනය වෙලා යයි 100% හඳුනාගත්ත රෝගීන්.
Meanwhile, the Association of Medical Specialists have once again called on the government to extend the ongoing quarantine curfew. Issuing a media communique yesterday, the association says that while having witnessed a gradual decline in the daily caseload, oxygen requirement and mortality through the lockdown, it needs to be extended until early next month if Sri Lanka wants to move from the current COVID-19 red zone to green. They also added that an earlier relaxation of restrictions can result in severe spread of the disease and a rise in the number of hospital admissions, which will increase the country's mortality rate. In the meantime, on several occasions, the epidemiology unit was seen making corrections to its daily tally by adding cases reported late from the previous months. The Ministry of Health today offered an explanation of the difficulties health workers face when working in remote areas when carrying out testing among communities.
Sometimes they go to an extremely difficult area where the data or communication facilities signal not available, or they do not have the specific facilities to enter the data then and there. So most of the time they collect the data, and these data sometimes cannot be communicated directly to the MOH office and to the epidemiology unit on the same day, and sometimes it is not practical for them to come back to the MOH office after traveling all the way from different places. These data is entered and communicated to the relevant authorities on the next day. We are improving the situation, but in certain situations it is inevitable.
In the vaccination front, Chairman of State Pharmaceuticals Corporation Dr. Prasanna Gunasena says that Sri Lanka has procured enough vaccines necessary to inoculate the country's targeted population.
In the meantime, Sri Lanka will be receiving 120,000 more doses of the Sputnik vaccine on Monday. The vaccines arriving from Russia will be administered to those who have received the first dose of the Sputnik vaccine.
So this 120,000 will be adequate for the total population who had the first vaccine. So basically after that, there is no need to get down any second doses.
For the chairman of the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation, Dr. Prasanna Gunasena also said today that Sri Lanka has completed the procurement process of all its COVID vaccines to inoculate the country's priority groups.
Currently, we have adequate number of doses to cover the population above 18 years, as well as for the booster and, if necessary, for the children. We have already secured all the necessary vaccines to Sri Lanka. We have enough vaccines now. Vaccine procurement is completed. We are just waiting to get the final doses of whatever the available vaccines to Sri Lanka.
As of last evening, 13,649,253 people were inoculated with a single dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Out of that number, 10,814,200 people have obtained both vaccine doses. However, health sector officials are concerned over an apparent reluctance of people between 20 to 30 years of age in getting vaccinated, explaining that baseless rumors of alleged fertility issues stemming from vaccines were the chief cause.
The turnover of younger generation is pretty much not adequate. I think the false reports that has been circulating regarding the importance and probable subfertility of people who get the vaccine, which is absolutely unproven, false fact, which is a rumor. And I think all the vaccine manufacturers, the scientific studies, WHO has very well documented that no such problems arises because of vaccines. At the same time, there are certain research publications coming up to say that COVID infection can cause fertility issues as well as the potency issues in males. So I think the message that we should communicate is for the young people to go and get the vaccine as quickly as possible using this given opportunity.
In the meantime, the Association of Medical Specialists said that Sinopharm vaccine provides excellent immunity of people aged between 20 to 30 years based on the data available. They also requested people to get the Sinopharm jab and make Sri Lanka COVID-free sooner than later.
Even though State Minister Lohan Ratwatte has resigned from his portfolio as Minister of Prison Management and Prisoners Rehabilitation, calls continue to be made by civil society and political circles calling for more action, including the stripping of his other portfolios as well. The Committee for Protecting Rights of Prisoners meanwhile lodged a complaint with the CID today calling for the arrest of the State Minister along with officials of the Prisons Department who allegedly aided and abetted the cover-up of the minister's actions.
State Minister Lohan Ratwatar yesterday resigned from his portfolio of prison management and prisoners' rehabilitation after claiming responsibility for incidents that transpired on the 6th and the 12th of this month. According to reports, the State Minister had allegedly entered the Valikada prison on the 6th of this month under the influence of alcohol, along with 3 other individuals, and displayed unruly behaviour. The State Minister was also accused of entering the Anuradhapura prison and to have threatened LTT detainees a few days later. However, despite his resignation, civil society groups and the opposition want more action taken against the errant State Minister, such as the stripping of all his portfolios. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka was one such entity to voice their concerns today. It said that the alleged criminal conduct on Ratwatar's part calls into question his eligibility to hold office in the government. They added that the allegations against are such that he can no longer command the trust or responsibility of not only a government minister charged with duties in the respect of prisons, but also as a minister holding any portfolio and as a member of parliament. The association called for the incidents to be investigated fully and impartially. Similar calls were made by TNA MP Sumanthiran today, who emphasized that the security of prisoners remain the state's responsibility and called for action to be taken accordingly.
Although he is said to have resigned from his post as Minister for Prison Management and Prisoners Rehabilitation, he continues to remain a Minister of State in charge of other subjects. This is not something that we can accept. He must be removed from all his positions immediately. The pistol that he carries with him must also be taken away from him immediately, otherwise it's a grave threat to the public at large. The big question that must be posed is how he managed to take his personal firearm inside the prison premises, so prison officials must answer to these questions. Prisoners are wards of the state, their security is in the hands of the state, and therefore this is a very, very serious incident that have happened, and action must be taken accordingly.
Meanwhile, the Committee for Protecting Rights of Prisoners lodged a complaint with the Criminal Investigation Department today, calling for the arrest of State Minister Lohan Ratwatar and the Commissioner General of Prisons and the prison spokesperson as well.
මේ අපරාධය පීඩාකාරී ආයුධ පැනතේ ගැනෙන අපරාධයක් ඒ අනුව ඔහුව අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න කියන එක තමයි කිව්වේ. ඒ වගේමයි අපි දන්නවා ඒ අපරාධය කිරීමේදී බන්ධනාගාර කොමසාරිස් ජෙනරාල් ඒ වගේම බන්ධනාගාර මාධ්‍ය ප්‍රකාශක අනුබල දීමක් කළා තියෙනවා. මොකද බන්ධනාගාර කොමසාරිස් ජෙනරාල් තමන් විසින් කළ යුතු ක්‍රියාවක් නොකර හැර තියෙනවා. ඔහුවත් අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වගේමයි ඔවුන් අන්තිමට මාධ්‍ය වලටත් ප්‍රකාශ කර සිටියේ මෙහෙම සිද්ධියක් වුණේ නැහැ කියලායි. ඒ කියන්නේ අනිත් පැත්තෙන් අපරාධය වසන් කරන්නත් කටයුතු කළා තියෙනවා.
However, Minister of Youth and Sports Namal Rajapaksa, who visited the Anuradhapura prison today, said that the government is committed to ensuring that an impartial investigation is conducted into the incidents. He also added that measures will be taken to consider what actions could be taken on certain inmates at the prison held in remand custody for almost 30 decades.
There was a media report, and also the opposition has accused the minister for a certain incident regarding the prison and also regarding connecting the LTT prisoners. So the president has instructed the authorities to carry out an impartial investigation. So in order to support the investigation, minister has decided to step down from the ministry. We will make sure that the investigation will carry out impartially to make sure that the justice is given to the people, if at all, if there was injustice during this incident or whether there was an incident or not. My visit here today is purely based on the statement I made in Parliament. The suspects have requested a meeting with me. So as a result, we came to talk to them regarding about their future and how are we going to deal with these prisoners who was there for a very long time, because some of them have been in remand, not convicted, but in remand prison 25-30 years. And some of them are 35 years. So we believe we should look at that in a very impartial way to see how we can reconcile them with the society.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanella Fernando. Have a good night.